unless you experience the assault, and I'll say it's an assault that devices have on your children, you don't know it from afar. Like, I've read the books and I read the articles, and then I had kids, and then they took my device and iPads, and they go, and all of a sudden you see these behavioral changes. You see them being addicted to this stuff.
Hello and welcome back to Education Vanguard. I'm Justin Hardman. Today I'm joined by Robert LoCascio, an American entrepreneur and founder and former CEO of LivePerson, where he's credited with helping pioneer web-based chat. So if you've ever clicked on a chat button on the bottom right of a website, you have Rob to thank for it. Personally, I'm very thankful. I can't stand call centers and all of that. And living overseas and calling 1-800 numbers was always a big question, finagling with Skype. So big thanks to Rob for that portion of his career. Though today he's working with two new companies, each are AI related. We'll be talking predominantly about the second one, Kid, which is a creativity and education AI device created for kids to turn screen time into creation time. Rob has three kids himself that are 4, 7, and 9, so he's a busy guy. So I'm excited he's giving up some time to chat with me today on the eve of the launch of the Kid product. So thanks for joining, Rob.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Glad to be
All
here.
right. First of all, can you just talk a bit about your background for people who don't know who you are, where you're from, the kind of origin story of Rob?
Yeah, so I'm from originally New York, and I started a company called LivePerson in 1995. It was a different name company, but it eventually became LivePerson. And in 1997, I invented web chat for websites. So you ever chatted on a website? I invented that technology. I was building websites, and I had e-commerce customers, and it got obvious that a website wasn't a vending machine, and that it'd be good if you could talk to another human. And like, you're right, at that time you had to pick up a phone or send an email. And I thought, why can't you chat on a website? So now that web chat is pervasive, and there's chat GPT, and there's a lot around chat, I guess I'm like the godfather of that technology. I ended up building it into a leading conversational AI company. I pivoted to AI in like 2016 and 17, and it was a public company for 22 years, about 3,000 employees, or $500 million revenues. So I'm proud of what I accomplished there. But I decided 3 years ago it was time for me to do some other things in the AI space that I thought could be pretty impactful, and felt like I kind of did what I needed to do over 28 years at LivePerson.
That's really great. I mean, you're bringing all of that experience to these new products, which I'd love to dive into. So you're now in California, you've got these two new companies. Can you tell me quickly about each one? They're both AI related, but quite different. So maybe talk about each one and then what the connection there is, if any, between the two.
Yeah, so I have two companies. One's called URARE.ai, and U with the letter U, and the other one is called Kid. And both are closely related strategically in my mind. And when I left LivePerson, and obviously the boom of large language models and everything, I started to think about a different type of world of AI, and one that would empower humans and allow them to use AI for good and community and connection and creativity, versus what I felt was the narrative, which is there's these giant large language models. They're smarter than human beings. They're eventually going to take our jobs, and who knows what else they're going to take from us. And I just felt there's a path where people can have their own models, so small models. We call that a human life model. And then devices, like devices where these models can live on. And in both scenarios, whether it's for children or adults, it's about having control. It's about parents and kids and adults having control over AI as a tool for good. And I felt the only way we could do that is through creating products that would allow that good to happen, versus talk about good and compliance and safety of AIs and blah, blah, blah in the terms of service. Let's make products that deliver on that promise.
Fantastic. When you were thinking about the kit product specifically, were there any particular, children's learning needs, development needs, creation needs that you felt like parents are struggling with that you felt like this product might address?
Yeah, I have these three young kids now, 9, 7, and 4, a girl, boy, boy. Unless you experience the assault, and I'll say it's an assault that devices have on your children, you don't know it from afar. Like, I've read the books and I read the articles, and then I had kids, And then they took my device and iPads, and they go, and all of a sudden you see these behavioral changes. You see them being addicted to this stuff. And what you come to realize is that, and I don't know if you, Jonathan Haidt, this NYU professor, wrote a book called The Anxious Generation last year. And he really nailed the research, which is the physical device itself with the cameras and everything, plus marry that with social media, and you've got yourself a weapon to get children to, be unhappy, to hurt themselves potentially, and to have depression and all that. And I started to think, like, I don't want my kids to grow up in that. And my kids are so fortunate because they're going to be an AI generation of kids. But yet, if it's not done right, they're going to end up being like AI addicts. They're going to end up being the bad part of all this. And I saw it firsthand. A couple of years ago, it was like I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard downstairs a noise, and there was my son, who at that time was about 4, and he's scrolling. He stole an iPad from our room, like hijacked it out of our room, and just was scrolling at 3 o'clock in the morning, scrolling. Didn't know what he was doing. He didn't know what time it was. He didn't know what he was watching. And I looked and I said, "What the heck is going on?" And I looked at the content and I realized they're programming this stuff, and they're creating addicts out of our children. And I don't want my children to have that future. So I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to build a company around it.
It's awesome, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a daily struggle in my house. I've got a 7-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter, and with the son, I mean, he's got this thing now where he wakes up in the middle of the night and tries to find the remote control for the TV because he knows he can get into YouTube, right? It's not like the old linear TV times. I mean, when I was a kid, there was literally nothing on in the middle of the night. It's just static. But for him, he can get into the YouTube videos. So we're hiding the remote control in the safe and at the top of the cabinets, and yeah, it does feel like a battle. And I think a big part of that is a lot of the devices nowadays that we associate with kids using. I mean, I would say the number one is tablets, right? And probably you would single out iPads, I mean, as the biggest one. And these are not devices that were really designed for children. I mean, they have children's apps on them, but they're not designed for children. They just happen to be the device that children are using the most. And so when you're thinking about designing a product that's for kids specifically, how do you go about that? How is a product designed for kids different than a sort of the generic devices that our kids are using now?
So like if I look at, this is the kid device, you can see it here. It's round. First of all, there's no scrolling. There's nothing to scroll here. You can connect with, these are little buddies. You can, and the center button is about creativity. A kid, through just, we can make a picture, buddies. We can make stories. I make stories with my children. So if you take out the scroll and the zombie stuff, what I call, it's, consumption behavior, and you flip it and say, okay, the device is about kids tapping into their creativity. It's about them talking to buddies in a safe way. There's tutors on here and everything. You just can change the game on it. And then the big part is that I started to realize, like, you probably know this. Like, when I hand my kid my device, it's almost like I hand it to him and I walk away. I don't do things with them on it. And this is made to have a child and a parent come together and create things together. So I call it like bringing back the bond, is what I'm trying to do. So if you design not for consumption, but if you design for creativity and connection, it's easy. It's just that they didn't want to do it, you know, because it's easy to do, like, addictive behavior for children is easy to program. Like, it's harder to make a device that's for creativity and connection.
Absolutely, yeah. What do you say to people that might say, because there's a big movement, for kids amongst parents, in large part driven by the height work you talk about towards like no screens, right? And what would you say to someone say, well, this is just you're just creating another screen for kids as opposed to having no screens?
I just think the no screen thing is, it's a loser. And I think we use screens, and more importantly, I think it's good our children use screens, especially in this world of AI, because it's going to power them to do amazing things, especially this generation. Now, the flip side is, there's been so much written, especially the last 2 weeks, that there's been like Chinese companies dumping teddy bears with AI into the market, and there's terrible things going on right now. And even I saw there was a couple of senators who came together in the U.S. to say, we're going to investigate these companies. The real important thing is that the AI was programmed for children, and the second part is that we put a lot of power in the parents' hands. They have an app, they can look what's going on. They get a lot of control over what is happening because ultimately parents have to decide their children's values and the use of these devices. But once again, I just think to say we're not going to have our kids to participate in AI, or we're not going to have our kids participate in any screens. I don't know. I just think you're asking for trouble. You know, I understand you can try it unless you don't have a job where you use screens. It's kind of hard to tell the kids not to do that. I just seen the battle. I have the battle.
Yeah. I mean, it also strikes me a little bit of an unrealistic goal, about just no screens at all versus, screens all the time. Like there can be a middle ground, and maybe that middle ground is what you're doing, right? Which is creating purpose-built, devices for kids as opposed to trying to manage it, right? Which is, I think, where we are a lot of the time at the moment.
Yeah, I'll do bedtime stories with my children here. So imagine we create a bedtime story, and I'll create characters. They create characters. It comes together with pictures and audio, and then I'll even leave the device with them, and I'll leave the room, and they may want to make a couple more stories after we made stories. But the device isn't like they're going to be up all night. They're not waking up 3 o'clock in the morning. It's very different when the creative parts of the brain act very different than the, I'll call it the reptile part, and the addictive parts. And so as long as you're there, I see the magic of it. Now the challenge is some parents will buy this thinking I'm going to take one addictive device and just I'm going to give them a good addictive device, and we didn't create that. Like kids just don't take it and start scrolling. They parents need to work with the kids. It's like a buddy came into your home and you're introducing a new friend, and you got to work with them a little bit because it's not meant to do scrolling and addictive behavior. So
Yeah, that's great. So you've launched the product just now. I'm curious, as someone who runs a business myself, are there any lessons you're bringing from your previous live person experience, very different business, to how you're building this new enterprise?
yeah, I had a unique situation in building LivePerson because it was a 28-year-old company, and some customers we had for over 20 years, which is unheard of. So I saw the arc of customers staying with you through thick and thin. So that's my perspective here is that we have about 400 families that bought it in the last couple of weeks. They got shipped the product. They're actually it's at their homes now, and they'll be opening it for Christmas or maybe a day or so sooner. But we're all together. We all have to be together in this creation of this company. I built it like for a community, and so it's the same what I did live person. It's that I want to keep this group as the founding members of the company, and we build together because it's not going to be easy. And they have great ideas. Although we did a lot of testing here and all that, sending it out to hundreds of families around the United States, from Hawaii, Canada, Florida, everywhere, it's really getting their feedback and us coming together as a group. We can beat it. We can beat it. We can build something great, but it's us coming together. And that was my lesson in life. It was like keep close to the customers. There's a face to this company. There's something authentic here. I built this for a reason for my own kids, and let's see if we can build a community around it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think it's a good lesson for anyone really that's building a business or a consultancy or a product or anything really. Can I ask you, I mean, this is the elephant in the room question. You sort of addressed it already, but how do you build guardrails into a product like this to assure so the parents can be assured that it's safe for kids? Of course, we hope that parents are with their kids all the time, co-creating the content and the buddy, and I get all of that, but there inevitably will be times where parent needs to step away to do something this or that. So how can parents feel safe with a product like this that has AI in it, as you've said?
But the big part is they're monitoring it. I think, they need to know what they have. They can see what's going on, what images, stories, what's going on, and they can see the language their kids are using, and that's all in that mobile app that they have. The other part is we purpose built the models and everything and put a lot of guardrails on them because it's just built for a kid. So the problem that we're seeing right now is if you take a chat GPT, it's got the world's knowledge in it. And then they're trying to train it down to say, well, ignore some pieces in this. We didn't try to build the world's knowledge AI. We tried to build one just for 4 to 12-year-olds. So everything was built with that. We just became COPA compliant, which is a big certification from the STC in the United States. It means that the device doesn't create anything harmful for kids. They can't create anything harmful. And the data also in privacy, the parents and the families control their data sets. So I think we're one of the few AI companies that has that. But it started with like when we started building this over a year ago, we started work with the compliance. There's a company that called Prevo that works with you. We worked with them all the way through the build to make sure that we would build purposeful for kids. So that's once again, we weren't trying to build an adult device and make it a little bit for kids. It's just only built for kids.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I guess the other kind of question in my mind, and I imagine other people might have about this, is how do you avoid AI becoming, a substitute for human connection? Especially for kids who might be lonely, neurodivergent. How do you, I mean, partly that's obviously the parents' responsibility, but how do you think about that from like a product perspective?
A lot of the use cases in here is about the kids and the parents. As a matter of fact, we're kicking off, like we're launching tomorrow and we're doing a 14-day sort of keep in touch with our families. And we're doing the first week is a contest of a parent and a child building stories. And we gave them like, it has to have a sled in it because it's wintertime here and all these different things. And we want to see the best stories from the kids and the parents. So I think it's just, we're going to orchestrate them to know like there's a lot on here that parents and children can do together. I've found the best times I've had with it is when I am doing something with my kids. Like we were baking cookies and we created a little AI buddy that's a chef to help me and my daughter bake cookies and tell it the recipe. And my daughter was asking you questions. What do I put in now? Oh, a cup of flour. Oh, okay. Then put in, milk. So it's fun stuff like that. The problem is we're just not used to it. Like it's such a bizarre thing because normally I don't have my device up and I'm like, let's do something together. It's normally like I'm just reading a recipe, but to have my daughter talk to a character and buddy, and it's very different. So I think the oxytocin, the thing you're looking for is this connective drug that's in the brain. The oxytocin is different than, dopamine. And so I think parents will find the oxytocin moments when you're holding your child, you're making a story where you're in it with them. Those are times you feel the magic of it. So it's just how the product was built, you know.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you lots of great moments with oxytocin in the next few weeks as you launch the product. It's been wonderful to chat with you this morning, and yeah, I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And go to kidco.ai. We're selling them. They're only in the US right now. They'll be coming globally soon, but you can check it out. And if you want to join a Facebook group and just be part of our community, come on in.
Great. Cheers.